Today we've got a bit of a fun episode. So we're actually going to go through ETFs, understanding number one, what an ETF is, how to invest in an ETF, and also finding ETFs that I guess, that fall within the niche that you're trying to find. So, for example, Bob and Jane, they're scared of what's happening in the world right now, and they want to invest in a ETF or an exchange traded fund. We'll get into it a little bit more detail a little bit later, but they want to find a fund that invests in things that might profit during a wartime. Or we've got Sally and Sally, okay, 2023. We've got Sally and Sally who want to invest in robotics or artificial intelligence, these sort of things. So what we're going to look at today is different websites where you can find information. So firstly, we want to find a website where you can find information on, what is an ETF, how do I invest in an ETF, just in general, just the sort of easier sides of finance. And then we're going to delve into a little bit more detail, and we're going to go to actual ETF providers, managed fund providers. We're going to go onto their websites and look, where do we find the information? What are they doing? What are they investing in? So obviously on your screen right now, you can see Investopedia. If you don't know Investopedia, I'm not sponsored by them or anything along those lines. It is just an absolutely phenomenal tool. Whatever you can think of that has to do with finance, you can find it here. So a very good example is, we are talking about ETFs right now. So just type in ETF and see what happens. There we go. Exchange traded fund, ETF, explanation with pros and cons. Let's click that article. I'm not going to go through the article. I'm not going to read it with you, but just an example. What is it? What does it do? It's giving you absolutely all the information you can think of. So today we're not, this episode has nothing to do with teaching you about how to understand ETFs. It's more about where do we find the information if we are investing. So if you're not aware, I am from Australia, so I'm going to use a couple Australian examples, but these do carry across to a lot of American and European countries because they are quite large providers. So as an example, Vanguard, everyone knows Vanguard. iShares, if it's loaded on your screen by now, everyone knows iShares as well. Probably one of the main reasons a lot of people know iShares at the moment is BlackRock seems to have made quite a debut on social media recently. A lot of people seem to think BlackRock owns the world. Yes, they have a shit ton of money in the market with their managed funds and with their exchange traded funds, whatever different funds they have. It's important to note it's not just one bloke with billions of dollars. It is you the people who are investing, who are making up these pooled funds, who are investing in different assets. So for example, I'm not even sure if iShares does this, but this is just a really good example. If iShares had a ETF called AAA or ABC, whatever we want to call it, and it invests in different companies in Australia, and we had 1,000, 100,000 different Australian investors that are all investing in it, and then you've got let's say a couple $1 billion invested in XYZ fund. It's not that one bloke at BlackRock that has the full. That's not him. That's not his assets. It's the conglomerate. It's everyone's assets. And that seems to be a little bit misled on social media, where they think that there's just one bloke or a couple of blokes that own all the assets with BlackRock. They are a funds manager. So there's, very, very easily put, funds management. They are managing funds on behalf of other people. You do have other companies like Dimensional. I do like to, I guess, shed a bit of light on Dimensional. It was hard to invest in them in the past. They have brought out ETFs recently, so we'll get into a little bit more detail in maybe another video. But probably the easiest one that I like to go for is BetaShares. So as I said, Australian here. So BetaShares is probably one of the largest and has quite a big ETF listing. So when you go to funds, you can actually for example, you just go to the BetaShares website, you go to funds, view all funds. If you're new to ETFs and you just want to sort of dabble in it and see what different types of ETFs are out there, this is probably a good place to start. Not saying investing in BetaShares, but just understanding what different types of ETFs are out there. Now, you come to the website and you come into the all funds, and I've come into the main section here. Now, on the left side here, you see all these different types of ETFs that they do have. And here is obviously the full list. But let's just go for an easy example. And I'm sort of setting myself up here. I wanted to go for the robotics example, which I know is in the technology part of the left-hand corner here. So when you go to the technology part, you've got many different ETFs. So you've got Asia Technology Tigers ETF, Cloud Computing ETF, and so forth. This is the one we're going to focus on just as an example. I'm not saying invest in this at all. It's just a very good example because it shows you different assets that are invested in this ETF. But on the main page here, we can see how the performance has been in the last 3 months, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So let's click on the ETF. Loading. Fantastic. So up here, you're going to see 4 letters, generally between 3 and 4 letters, sometimes a number involved. But essentially what this is called a ticker code. So when you go onto CommSec or whatever platform you're using to buy shares, you'll have to type in a ticker code. And in this case, it would be RBTZ for this robotics ETF. So if you were to go onto Google and type in, I want artificial intelligence ETF, I'm sure this would be right up the top there. So going on to the main page, you've got the fund objective, fund strategy, benefits, etc., etc. You got a little bit of a video, how to invest. Now, look, this is a bit of a hard one. How to invest. There are many different ways to invest in ETFs. Exactly the same with investing in shares, in managed funds, all these sort of things. So there are many different platforms. I mean, in Australia, it's quite common. Commonwealth Bank is probably one of the most well-known banks in Australia. They have a platform called CommSec. There are many other banks that offer the sort of similar trading platforms. You've got online platforms, CMC markets, these sort of things. But essentially, buying an ETF or buying a share isn't the hard part. It's really understanding what the ETF does. And this is what this whole video is about. So we're going down profile. That won't mean a lot to a lot of people. Trading information, again, ASX code, the ticker, like we said before. This is probably one of the more important parts. So people want to understand what's in the ETF I'm buying. So an exchange traded fund, typically holds quite a lot of assets. And when I say assets, it's going to be think of a bubble, and within that bubble, you've got many different companies or commodities, whatever it might be, depending on the ETF. In this case, we are looking at BetaShares robotics. So we want to understand what is within this ETF in particular. Now, thankfully, and again, the reason I've used BetaShares as an example is because it's quite straightforward. They tell you what the company is, and so we'll just go with their top holding, which is NVIDIA. Now, Nvidia has a 15.7% weighting within the ETF. So what does that mean? I mean, quite simply put, imagine you have invested $100 into this ETF. You'd think $15.70 of that at the time, or the $100 that you've spent, is part of Nvidia Corp. Now that goes the same for $1,000, $10,000, whatever you may be investing in it. Now, further down the page, you will also see download CSV. So I quite like this function when I'm looking at different ETFs. I mean, this is going a little bit too far for most people that are looking for a beginner sort of attitude towards ETFs. But if you download CSV, it's going to show you each and every asset that they hold within the ETF at that time. So don't think if you download it today, 12 months down the track, are they going to have the same assets? Probably not. Or the same weightings? No, very unlikely. Down here is probably the easiest tool just to see the sector allocation. Generally, if you're looking at an ETF, you already understand the sector you're going for. But when it comes to, in this example, robotics and artificial intelligence, it's not just going to be electronics or semiconductors. There are other sectors, and good example here is about over 10% in healthcare equipment. I don't know which company that might be. We could probably go back up and have a look, but the other parts that they show on this website is the country allocation. So which countries are they actually invested in? So again, a bit of a hard one, because when you think about it, a lot of these companies, whilst they might not even be in America or be in XYZ country, their company is domiciled there. A lot of them you'll find are in the United States. So if you go for an international ETF, whatever it might be, just a standard ETF, international ETF, you'll find a lot of the holdings are in the United States, and then the remainder are the likes of Europe, maybe a little bit in Australia. Don't see much of it, to be honest. Coming down here, we see the returns. So returns after fees. Now, fees is a really fun part to talk about. Fun from the perspective of understanding what you're paying for these sort of exchange traded funds, or even not in this example right here, but managed funds. Everything comes with a little bit of a fee. So you'll find on some websites there'll be an MER, Michael Echo Roger, management expense ratio, or in other cases there'll be an ICR, depending on how the website actually shows it, indirect cost ratio. So it shows you the cost of investing in a fund. So a good example is, let's just use the cost of a fund is 1%. Now, that's quite expensive, but again, there are many funds that do charge that, some even more so. So if you were to receive a 10% return in a year, so let's say you invested $100,000 and you got a 10% return in the year. So at the end of the year, you get you've got $100,000 and you get $10,000 in return, 10%. If the expense ratio, the management expense ratio, or the cost of the fund was 1%, it would have meant that you would have received an 11% return, but they have taken their 1%. Now that 1% covers many different attributes, but is certainly justified in a lot of cases. So I won't go into that into detail right now, but there are other videos that we have done that obviously show that in a bit more detail. The chart, obviously very, very straightforward. Generally, when you get down to the charts, they actually show either 1, 3, or 5 years. It looks like in this case, they've obviously gone for the 5-year range, which is great because you get to see a little bit of a dip. Obviously, here's COVID, get to see what's going on there, and quite a big downturn here. If you want to see what it's done in the last couple of days, month, 3 months, 6 months, year to date, 1 year, 3 year, and what we saw before, 5 years. Excellent way to see the returns of the fund, and that's pretty much it. So look, that was a really basic sort of rundown of going through a website, going through an ETF, understanding what all the different parts are. It is a really good basic understanding, and you can pretty much attribute the exact, literally what we just did to any of the other ETFs. So if we went to funds, view all funds, and just went to, I'm just going to pick one of the first ones that come up here. So let's do Asia Technology Tigers ETF. Got all tiger countries. So you're going to find the Asia Technology Tigers. There's the ticker. So as I said, if you want to find it on an exchange, the objective, benefits, etc., small video, how to invest. We talked about that before. Profile, etc., and then the portfolio holdings. So Samsung, of course, everyone knows that. Tencent, Alibaba, so forth. Download CSV here to see the exact, holdings for all the assets there, and sector allocations and chart. Whilst this doesn't really give, and using both examples now that we've just gone through, doesn't give you an understanding of should I invest in this. Well, this video wasn't to understand should I invest in XYZ. It was more so just giving you an understanding of how do I understand what's in it, what's in an ETF, what website do I go to, what do I look for, these sort of things. Understanding which ETFs to invest in is a completely different story. So this video is more so just to give you an understanding of where to look and what to do. So look, thank you very much for watching our video today. We'll be back with a couple other episodes on the Bear of Bull Market Boulevard. Thank you very much for your time today, guys. Have a great day.